I have had a question on my mind for years. I mean, years. I have asked myself this question many times when I am alone at night. I want to talk to you about. I have not found the answer. I have come close to finding something that feels like an answer on some nights. When I am in certain moods, I have never found the whole answer. The answer that stays with me and does not go away. I think not finding the answer is the important part of my story. It is more important than the question itself. It is more important than any of the answers I have tried to find over the years. Living with a question that you cannot answer for a time changes you. It changes you in ways that finding the answer would not have changed you. You have to do something to deal with the question. It builds something inside of you, something that finding the answer would have missed. I want to tell you what it has been like to live with this question. Before I tell you what the question is, because living with the question is what this is really about. The question itself is simple. I can say it in one sentence. It has been a big part of my life for so long. The simple sentence does not say what it has been like to carry this question with me. The question is simple. What it means to me is not simple. The nights are when the experience of doubt arrives reliably. That is the thing I want to say about it. During the daytime, I have a lot of things on my mind, so the doubt is there. It is not the only thing I think about. It is one of many things that I carry with me. At night, when everything else is quiet, the doubt moves to the front of my mind and becomes the primary thing. It is the thing that is happening inside of me while everything else has stopped. I have spent nights lying awake with this question present in my mind. The question is whether I chose correctly, not in one specific decision, but in all of the decisions that I have made that have added up to the life I am living now. I think about whether the life I have is the right one, the one I would choose again if I could see it all before choosing. The experience of doubt is something that I have learned to live with. It is a part of my life, like a companion that's always there asking me questions that I do not have the answers to. The question is hard to answer because what is the right choice depends on what I think is most important. I have not always been consistent about what I think is most important. Sometimes I think love is the important thing. Sometimes I think duty is the most important thing. When I am trying to decide what to do, I weigh these things differently. That makes it hard to know if I made the right choice. I have tried ways to find an answer to this question. I want to describe some of these attempts because I think they are revealing not just the question itself, but the ways that I try to find answers. The experience of doubt is something that I have been living with for a time, and I have tried many things to make it go away. The doubt is still there, and I am still searching for answers. The doubt is not something that I feel anxious about. It is like something that I think about in a meditative way. I sit with the question. I think about it even though I know that I may not find the answer. The act of thinking about the question is what is important, not finding the answer. It is like maintaining a relationship with the question. That is what matters to me. The question of whether I chose correctly is a question that I will always be asking myself. It is a question that I will always be trying to find an answer to. I think that is why I keep coming to the question, because it is a question that matters to me. It is a question that's at the heart of who I am, and it is a question that I will always be trying to answer. The experience of doubt is not something that I can escape, it is something that I have to live with. It is something that I have to find a way to be at peace with. The nights are when the doubt is most present. It is during these times that I think about the question the most. I think about whether I chose, and I think about what I would do differently if I had the chance. The doubt is something that I have learned to live with. It is something that I will always be carrying with me. It is also something that I have learned to find a way to be at peace with, and it is something that I will always be trying to find answers to. The experience of doubt is a part of my life. It is something that I will always be navigating. The most obvious attempt has been to look at the outcomes, to evaluate the choices by what they produced, and decide that if the outcomes are good, the choices were correct. And there is a version of this that almost works. There is a version where I look at what my life contains, the things I have built, and the people I am connected to, and the work I have done, and the meaning I have found. And I can see that these things have value and that the choices that led to them were therefore not wrong. And on certain nights, this version is almost not enough, almost gets me to the settled place where the question stops pressing, but it never quite gets all the way there because outcomes cannot fully answer a question about correctness that involves more than outcomes, that involves the things that were not chosen and what they might have produced, and whether what was not chosen might have produced something that the chosen things, good as they are, do not quite reach. The second attempt has been to try to identify the specific choices I would make differently, to find the places where a different decision would have led to something better. And what I have found is that I cannot locate them with any confidence, not because I think every decision I have made has been optimal, but because the connections between decisions are so dense and so non-linear that I cannot trace a clear path from any alternative decision to a demonstrably better outcome, cannot find the place where I can say with any honesty that if I had chosen differently there, I would have arrived somewhere I would clearly prefer. And the inability to find those places does not tell me that I chose well. It just tells me that the counterfactual is not accessible, that what might have been is genuinely not knowable from where I am, and unknowable is not the same as answered. The third attempt, and this is the one I return to most often because it comes closest to something that feels like peace, even if it does not quite achieve it, has been to ask a different question alongside the original one. Not whether I chose correctly, but whether I chose honestly, whether the choices I made were the ones that were available to me given who I was at the time I was making them, given what I knew and what I believed and what I was capable of understanding about my own situation in those moments. And when I ask it that way, something loosens slightly because I think the honest answer to that version is yes, that I made the choices that were available to a person with my particular interior equipment at those particular moments, and that judging those choices against what someone with different interior equipment or more information or greater clarity might have chosen is a category error, is holding myself to a standard that the actual person making the choices in real time could not have met. But the loosening that comes from that reframing is not complete, which is why I keep returning to the original question every night rather than resting in the more generous version, because part of me believes that honest is not quite enough, that the question of correct exists independently of the question of honest, and that the fact that I chose as well as I could does not settle whether I chose as well as the situation required. And those two things are different, and the difference between them is where the question lives and where it will not stop living, regardless of how many nights I return to it. What I have come to believe, not because I have found the answer, but because years of living with the question have produced something that feels like an understanding even without being a resolution, is that the question may be constitutively unanswerable, not just currently unanswered, but unable to be answered in principle, because the thing it is asking about, Whether the totality of a life's choices was correct can only be evaluated from a perspective that does not exist while you are still in the life walk and still making the choices and still accumulating the outcomes that will eventually constitute whatever verdict is available, and asking of it from inside the life is therefore always premature, always asking for a judgment before the evidence is complete, and the nightly returning to it is not the seeking of an answer that might be found, but the maintenance of a relationship with a question that matters, the refusal to stop caring about whether I am choosing well, even in the absence of any mechanism for confirming that I am. And I think that refusal, that persistent caring in the absence of confirmation, is maybe the most honest thing I do, the most honest relationship I have. This nightly sitting with an unanswerable question and this being willing to stay in the not knowing rather than reaching for the false comfort of a premature answer. And if I never find the answer, which I expect I will not, I think the decades of asking will have been worth something that the answer itself could not have given me, which is the specific quality of person you become when you refuse to stop asking the question that most matters to you, even when the asking produces nothing but more asking. And I think that quality, whatever it is something I would not trade for the resolution, and that is maybe the closest I have come to an answer, which is that the question is worth more than any answer I could find to it, and that on some level I already knew that, which is probably why I keep asking.